Hey guys, do you guys see this default terrain? Yeah, we can't be having that. Let's fix that. Today we're going to be building Minecraft's largest and most overkill farm, hopefully like nothing you've ever seen before. Before we can build anything though, we first have to prep all the area. As this project is a giant wheat field, we have to flatten all of the terrain. And the fastest way I know to do that is with 3 world eaters. So opening up our redstone box here, we have all of the materials needed to build these bombers ready to go. So let's build them, and then let's AFK them. Shout out to Cybark for hopping on to help me with this step. A single player's render is not actually large enough to render the flying machines as they bounce back and forth, so we had to AFK about 10 chunks apart, just so that way we could render the entire area all at once. This process took forever. This single clip here is 12 hours of bombing. It's been about 20 hours and we've successfully bombed everything out. Now there are a few sections where there's some floating blocks that I missed with our final pass through, but apart from those, everything is fully cleared now. Mostly. While we were able to bomb out the majority of this, there are a few little sections that we weren't able to get, one of which is the corner of this mountain. Most of this is covered by our custom rocks that we will be adding, but just a little bit on this corner right here we have to manually mine out. Let's grab a couple picks and get to it. A couple of the areas like this were just touching custom terrain already, and I really didn't want to bomb out all the custom terrain and have to rebuild it, so I decided just to manually mine out the corners. And then on the other side here, I'm just removing all of the trees, and this little corner here I also couldn't remove without bombing out the savanna, so we went ahead and manually mined out the last couple layers in this area as well. Now that we've gone in and we've managed to mine out both of these little corners, all of the area is completely done. What that means is we will be able to build without any obstructions anywhere in the area, and it should make building a way smoother process now that all the prep work is done. One thing you've definitely noticed is all of this water that I didn't bother to remove. I made a design choice which was to build the entire project a block above sea level. That way none of the water would have to be removed. And I did this on purpose as I really didn't want to drain the water. Obviously this build is a bit massive, so I'm going to break it into a few sections. But first, speaking of massive projects, this section is sponsored by WynnCraft, which is about to launch their massive Fruma expansion that they've been working on for 7 years now. WynnCraft is a full MMORPG Minecraft server with over 4.8 million players. It has a huge hand-built world, real story-driven quests, and a unique item ability system. With 5 classes and 15 archetypes to choose from, it is designed to feel like a proper RPG, not a minigame, with minimal grinding, deep, long-running lore. I've been spending time playing WynnCraft for some time now, and it genuinely feels closer to a standalone RPG than anything you'd expect from a Minecraft server. The scale, the polish, and the amount of custom systems really stand out once you're in it. The Fruma expansion pushes that even farther. It continues the main storyline with a polished narrative and real RPG dialogue boxes and portraits. The expansion also raises the level cap from 105 to 120 and adds all new ultimate abilities for every class. Play for free now at peacefulpenguin.wynnCraft.com. IP will also be linked down below in the description. Make sure to check it out, guys. It's amazing. So block gathering for this project is going to be a bit different than how we normally do it. The first step that we're going to deal with is we're going to do a bunch of rocks around the perimeter to help separate it from neighboring pieces of terrain, as well as lay in the foundation for the entire wheat field. So without further ado, let's go block gather for the base layer. All right, so what are we getting started with? We have to block gather how much? 61 shulker boxes of coarse dirt, which means I need about 31 boxes of dirt. All right, how much dirt do we currently have? We currently have, what's that, 9 plus 6, 15 shulker boxes, so we got half of how much we need. All right, we got 5 shovels, way too many boxes. Let's get this done. Normally I override the day and night cycle on all my recordings so that you guys can see everything during the daytime, as it's a better viewing experience. But just for fun, in this one clip, I decided to just get rid of that and just do the normal day-night cycle so you guys can actually understand how long each of these steps takes me. I ended up spending about 3 hours gathering the remaining 16 shulker boxes of dirt. So this combined with the 16 that we already had is plenty to be able to do all of the coarse dirt that stretches the entire wheat field. But obviously to make coarse dirt, you also need equal part gravel. So here I am running the duper just to gather the remaining 31 shulker boxes of gravel that I need to complete all of the coarse dirt. That is all of the gravel and all of the dirt. Let's get to crafting. I realized I use so much dirt in these projects, and I was wondering if I should build one of those dirt farms I've seen online. Let me know if you guys have built one before and if you think I should. Now the next problem is because we need 85,000 dried grass, the way dried grass growing works is you bone meal dried grass and it creates a small dried grass, then you bone meal the small dried grass and it creates a tall dried grass. Now because of that, that means I need 2 bone meal per tall dried grass, And if I need 85,000 tall dried grass, I need about 170,000 bone meal. Now, I've been working overtime and I've been running our bone meal farm non-stop for the past few days, and I have so many shulker boxes of bone meal. This isn't even close to all the ones that I've gotten so far. We're gonna load this machine up and AFK a session and see how much we get. I really hope this puts a good dent into the 85,000 that we need. It did not. It ended up taking me about a week of running the bone meal farm and breaking tall dried grass, but we officially have 105,000 tall dried grass mined, and we are able to place in all of these remaining shulker boxes and finish off tall dry grass as well. Now, before we move on, I feel like I should address one thing, which is why am I using tall dried grass instead of wheat for this wheat field? Now, here's a side-by-side comparison of tall dried grass and wheat, and in my opinion, I actually really prefer the tall dry grass look. I feel like it adds just a little bit more of the correct whitish color that wheat has compared to the really yellow color that the normal Minecraft wheat has. Now, this also comes with one extra added benefit, which is I do not have to till every single piece of land to be able to plant a wheat seed. And that alone is going to save me so many hours of work, and I'm really happy I chose to do the tall dried grass instead of the wheat. Coming back to survival though, sadly our adventures with the dried grass is not quite over, as I did mix in a bunch of the short dried grass as well into this project. So I'm gonna lock in real quick, gather the remaining about 8,000 short dried grass, and we'll be good to move on. And after spending another evening mining dried grass, we have every single type of dried grass gathered. Next up, we needed 3 shulker boxes of stripped oak wood, as well as 1 shulker box of stripped birch wood. Now, to accomplish this, I just turned on my TNT bomber, set my stripping machine going, and we just went and AFK'd all 4 shulker boxes of stripped woods. While we're on the topic of oak wood, we also need 4 shulker boxes of oak planks, and we need a shulker box of birch planks. Now, I know we have plenty of logs of these, yep. So I'm gonna quickly gather these up, and that'll be another 2 blocks done. Next up, I need 4.5 boxes of light gray terracotta, and we have about 1 already gathered there. I'm gonna go ahead and mine the next 3, and I'll get back to you guys in a second. I ended up mining a little bit more than 3 just because I wanted to finish all of the terracotta gathering for this entire project all at once. So I ended up getting about 5 boxes and we're good to go for the rest of the project. And after a little bit of dying, here we have all 4 boxes of light gray terracotta done. Next, I needed 4 shulker boxes of polished tuff. And to gather this, I typically just build a beacon and go into a cave system and just mine out all of the pockets in the cave system. And I find that that is the most efficient way to access all of the tuff pockets quickly. And that's another block checked off. And the last block of step 1 is packed mud. And because I used all of my dirt crafting coarse dirt, I realized that I actually needed to gather some more dirt. So I came back to the same point and just mined out a ton more grass and dirt. And after that was done, I just went back to the same blast chamber I did the stripped wood in, turned the dirt into mud, and then crafted up a bunch of packed mud. And just like that, we have all the blocks gathered to start working on step 1. Step 1 is going to consist of all of the mountains around the corners and the base layer, including the wheat field. So let's get on, let's place these blocks. So historically on this world, we've always done these like very standard rock designs where it's like standard grays, whites, blend between them to create normal gradients, pretty standard Minecraft rock. However, for this project, I really didn't want to do that. As I was going sci-fi, I wanted to lean into that alien planet feel. And I built these rocks out of like stretched ellipses, and then I colored them with this gray to tan palette, and I think it turned out really interesting. So I think in the future, I'm going to attempt to do more rocks in this weird style and try and play off of more unique shapes. Maybe I'll do some more cube rocks. Maybe I'll try and mix in some triangle or spherical rocks. We'll see what happens. But as I mentioned before, the idea for these rocks on this project was to kind of help them separate from the other projects. Kind of try and create a small barrier. I actually saw a Mog Swamp short a while back where he talked about using terrain to block views to other projects to help separate them from one another. Kind of the way they do it at Disneyland. Now, I didn't lean fully into that and I didn't want to completely block off like the pyramid, for example, but I utilized this to try and help me separate all my areas. I'm definitely going to end up talking about this more throughout this video, but I seriously cannot get over how insane it is. Whenever we're building new projects in the overworld now, no matter where you look, you can just see years and years of projects. In the distance, you can now see the whole garden project, the jungle project, the old forgotten forest, and even the mech just behind these rocks that I'm making right now. Now, moving on to the other side of the wheat field, we're just doing more rocks along the eastern side as well as the western side. I did think about putting some in the middle, but honestly, I wanted it to feel like an endless wheat field, and if I put rocks in the middle, I really feel like it would have taken away from that aspect. But make sure to let me know what you guys think about these rocks. I'm really happy with how they turned out, and I really think they're quite interesting. But you guys also always give fantastic feedback, so I'm really interested to see what you might have done if you were in my position here. And with that last rock in, we have finished every single one of the main rocks in this area. Now, my next step is going to be to go in and do the wheat field. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. I don't currently have too much to talk about because only the rocks are in, but the moment the entire wheat field's in, I'll have a lot more to talk about. So let's go place another 160,000 blocks and finish off the wheat field. Actually, there is one thing. This area right here where the new rocks connect to the old mountain is going to be smoothed over a little bit differently. And then on top of that, we're talking about in the future adding a potential path that will loop from the medieval village over there, loop through the Forgotten Forest, up and around here, around the base of the jungle, and then into the Redwood Village on this side instead. Our goal is to slowly create kind of like a spider web of roads that link all of our builds together, and I think that this would be a perfect place to put a new one. Okay though, time to get back to work. So if you're ever staying up late at night and you're like, what does 105,000 coarse dirt look like in Minecraft? Well, it looks like this. One thing I thought I'd mention on this part is I thought about mixing in other blocks into the coarse dirt layer, but honestly, with the blocks I could mix in, it would have only been like rooted dirt, mud, and a couple other blocks that I could place dried grass on, and I didn't really think it was worth it. In the long run, that might have been a short sight for me, but it also made the building process way smoother. Like in this case, for this part, I could just carry 5 extra shulker boxes of coarse dirt on me at a time, and I didn't have to keep going back to my stash, and it made building so much faster. That actually went way faster than I was expecting. We finished all of the coarse dirt in one sitting, and we placed about 105,000 coarse dirt blocks. But now that the base layer is in, we're able to go back and we're able to add all the wheat field on top of it. Now you might have noticed there's a bunch of holes scattered around where it kind of looks like I just missed coarse dirt, but this is where all of the structures that I've designed to sit on this wheat field will be. So don't worry, we'll be coming back and we'll be filling in all of these holes soon. Now, a couple more things. There are a bunch of areas like this that I will have to clean up, and I will deal with that at the end of step 1. I haven't actually block gathered for that yet, and I don't think I'll show that in the video, but it's nothing too serious. It'll just be a little bit of sand here and there, and we'll fill in all these gaps and clean up the edge. However, on this edge here, we're going to be leaving it how it is right now. We're going to take the wheat all the way to the edge, but we're not going to actually fill in this corner. That is because we are really unsure about what kind of projects are going to be sitting in this area, and there actually is a future project planned for this area, and it is going to be lower down, so there's really no point in me filling it in, as everything I build will have to be broken eventually. But I'm really happy. It's coming together really nicely. Now I'm going to get back to work, get a bunch of the wheat in, and then I'll check back in once the wheat field's done. I have come to the conclusion I really need to start working on smaller projects, but then I look at my project backlog, and every single project is like bigger than the next. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. One thing's for sure though, it definitely means you should hit subscribe so that you don't miss out on any more of these insane projects that I'm doing. I'm trying to push for 100k subs this year, so if you guys want to help me out, it really means the world to me. Thank you guys so much. Coming back to the build though, I honestly think that this is the most satisfying step in the entire process. Just watching that patch of dirt turn into a wheat field. This part of the build right here was what inspired the entire project, so I'm really happy with how this turned out. At this point, we're about 50,000 dried grass into this, and as you can see, it is starting to actually look like a wheat field. And once we get to this kind of scale, I think the choice of using dried grass actually works even better than if we had done wheat. I like the little bit of space between them on the ground. It helps it feel a little bit less monotone and a bit more realistic. But we still have a lot to place. Obviously, with 50,000 being done, we're only slightly over halfway. So I'm going to go lock in and finish the other half, and I'll see you guys in a second. I always got asked what I do when I'm doing these really monotonous steps, and if I'm not streaming, I'm honestly either listening to audiobooks or watching TV. I ended up binging almost the entire season of Invincible Season 4 during this project, and honestly, it was really fire. Coming back to the project, we are almost done with placing all this dried grass, and after placing these last few, we'll be good to continue on. 9 hours later, we are fully done with the wheat fields. So obviously I plan all these builds out in creative mode first, but this is my first time ever actually getting to see what the wheat field will look like with the surrounding terrain. And I am so happy with it. I think it's going to blend perfectly between all these areas. I think it's going to add a really unique new biome to our world. My only complaint is that with dried grass, when you're right above it, the area looks very brown and a little rough. But once you go down a bit more level with it, I think it looks so good. So the next step for us is I'm going to start blending in all the edges. There's a bunch of areas all around, like right here where the desert connects, that I have all mapped out and I just haven't finished blending. I'm going to go ahead and clean up all of these corners, and then we'll get back to work on actually building the structures that sit in the middle. For the blending, I did have to gather a little bit of sand, so I just ended up running our end duper again a little bit longer, and we gathered up a few shulker boxes of sand and we were good to go. And with the blending process, obviously the biggest problem with working with sand is that it's a gravity block, so you have to place a layer underneath it. When I did the original desert, I actually built an entire cobblestone shell and then placed the sand on top of that, and I will have to do something similar here. So for this one, I ended up doing a shell out of yellow wool, just went underneath, freehanded all of that in, and then placed sand on top of it all. I'm really happy with how this corner right here turned out, where it blends all three biomes together, but we'll revisit that here in a second. Coming across here, this was where we bombed out a little bit more than I would have liked, but it was just the most convenient way to get this done. So we just went in and continued the desert out like we've done with the rest of this. I might come back and move some wheat up into the desert a little bit more, but currently it just kind of ends with the rocks, and I'm not sure whether that's a good choice or a bad choice. It's kind of like a harsh line right now, but it also helps divide the projects a bit smoother. And with that last bit of sand being placed, we've successfully blended the desert over into the new wheat fields. And I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I do think I could have maybe carried the sand a little bit farther, and that is something I might revisit in the future. And then the other thing that I might want to mess with more in the future is how this sandbank really comes down hard. This is how the sand was originally shaped when we first made the desert. But because of that, there's sections like this where honestly the bank should probably carry to the base of the rock. So I might come in and add a little bit more sand in some of these places in the future. Apart from that though, I'm really happy. I'm really happy with specifically this section right here where we blend all three biomes together, and I think I was able to kind of continue that feeling around the corner. All of this north side's done as well. The only part that's not done yet is the top of this hill right here, but I think I'll leave that till later. So what's next in the project? I think I'm going to start with this structure right here. This is going to house a couple of the villagers from our villager trading hall. I'm just kind of going to move some over here and spread them out across our world to help us like have a reason to really traverse the world. So all of the farming villagers are going to get moved into the house that sits right here, and I think I'm going to go start block gathering for this house right now. We have quite the list to get through, so let's get started. Starting off, we need 400 red terracotta and 230 spruce planks, so I'm going to go quickly grab those. Apart from that though, I'm just going to kind of name some of the really interesting blocks we had to gather for this, which was like 74 beehives, a lot of random waxed copper, including stairs, lightning rods. I used so many lightning rods in this project. Some red sandstone, bunch of looms, smokers, autocrafters, daylight detectors, anything that had that sci-fi look, just like a random assortment of blocks, I tried to use in this project. I even used a skulk sensor. If you guys ever need to have oxidized copper consistently, I highly recommend you make one of these platforms, space out oxidized copper, create a chunk loader that permanently chunk loads the area, and no matter what we do, I can just log offline, I'll come back and all of my copper will be oxidized. I took a break and logged back in. Everything's now oxidized and we're ready to continue. One thing you'll probably notice in this project is I use a ton of mangrove shelves, and because of that, I really don't want to have to hand gather mangrove anymore, so I decided to build a mangrove farm. And then you might also notice that I'm placing this inside of a perimeter. Ignore this. This is something that is going to be happening next video, so if you are interested to see why I am placing this farm inside of a perimeter, make sure to hit that subscribe button. This is a massive project that will be shown next video, and I'm just getting a little bit of a head start here. But I promise you, it's worth subscribing for. And after a couple hours of block gathering, we now have every single block gathered, and honestly, I am mind blown by how many blocks I used in this thing. This is like a 15 by 15 house. In this project, I really tried to push myself to over detail and really texture everything. And if this doesn't show that, I don't know what does. So on the first structure that sits on the wheat field, we went for a little bit of a traditional sci-fi house. And then to make it a little bit more interesting, a viewer on Twitch recommended that I add a dug-in pipe into the ground. Fantastic idea. I absolutely love that. It's a really unique piece of detail that I wouldn't have done if they hadn't suggested it. So huge shout out to them. I really appreciate that one. One thing I am really proud of in that part is if you look later in the video, you'll actually see I added soul sand to the spilled water. So there's actually bubble particles that come up, and I really like that detail, like the pipes leaking. And then to keep the sci-fi theme off the back here, we added a satellite and a little control tower. And I might have gone a little bit overboard with the detailing on those. We finally have one house on the wheat field. I think we did a great job at adding a bunch of little detailing to this one. For example, here where we have the pipe that's leaking and they've dug it up to try and work on it. I think the rusted look of the pipe really worked out with the oranges and the browns. And then because it's sci-fi, I tried my best to just clutter everything with just random objects. Now, I don't think I did the best job with this, but I think just these random objects placed together kind of work. If any of you guys are a fan of Lego, it's called greebling, where you just add random details to make it look more busy. And I think we kind of pulled off that look pretty well. Coming around the back here, I'm really proud of how this satellite like antenna system turned out. It's so wacky, just so many entirely random blocks that have no business being together, but I think it looks phenomenal and I'm really proud of how this turned out. This is my first time ever building in this style, so I'm quite surprised that everything ended up turning out better than I thought. Next, to address an elephant in the room, yes, this build is inspired by Andor. I know I'm going to receive a ton of comments about it. Andor is one of my all-time favorite shows that I've ever watched. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend you check it out. This is one of the houses that features in the show, and I've actually done 2 other builds in this wheat field that belong to Andor, and I can't wait for you guys to see them here in a second. I can't get over how good the pyramid looks in the distance with this build in the front. I think this was the best spot we could have ever placed this project, and I think it will help blend all these areas together really well. It is such a weird feeling finally being back out here. It's been almost a year and a half since I built anything on the east side of this mountain range here. Now that we've finished the house where they're going to sit, our next step is actually to move some of the villagers over from our old trading hall up in the sky over here, over to their new home. And something I think that's really funny is I completely forgot that these villagers are already in a wheat field. So they're going to be used to it and they're going to be moving to their new home, which is just a larger wheat field. Recently, we updated our game, so we're now able to have happy guests. And because of that, I think this will be the easiest way to transport these villagers. So this will be my first time ever using a happy guest to transport mobs, and hopefully it works well. I am aware these things are really slow, so I feel like this is going to take a while for me to get there. Yeah, I'll see you guys in 20 minutes. Now that we've managed to get the happy guest over to the villagers, it's time to daisy chain all of the villagers together. So I'm going to go ahead, link them all up with boats. We'll fly them back over to the new build, and then we'll proceed from there. This is my first time ever truly using the happy guest, and they really are a revolutionary mob. I just wish they were a bit faster. But Mojang, please give me more inventory space, I beg of you. But using the happy guest, I was able to speed up this process by so much. Normally I'd have to use a bunch of nether portals, so the happy guests are such a welcome addition. And our first victim is into his new house, so we're gonna take him over here. I actually don't really know how I'm gonna get him into these boxes, but we'll try our best here. Let's see if we... Actually, I should probably block the door off so he can't jump out. I'm gonna break the boat. And then we're just gonna push him and hope. Push. Come on, work with me. Work with me. Come on. Oh, you're almost in. No, stay there. Let's go. That's 1 in. I'm gonna do this process for the next 7, and I'll see you guys here in a second. And after about 6 minutes of pain, all 8 villagers are now housed in their little corners, and they have successfully been moved to the wheat field where they will sit and enjoy their new home forever. I am a generous god. Now that house number 1 is done, however, we are going to begin to work on the main attraction, which is the grain silo in the middle right here. So I'm going to go ahead, block gather up the grain silo, and then we'll build it, and we'll move on from there. But it's coming together quite nicely. I should probably bring Marshmallow back though. So for this next building, we actually need a lot more blocks than for the first one. We need about 3,000 mangrove shells. We needed about 4,000 stone, 2,000 smooth stone, 1,500 diorite, 1,500 iron blocks, almost a shulker box of iron blocks. And apart from that, it's more of the usual. I used just everything known to man in this project. So I'm going to go ahead, gather up all of these shelves mainly. It's like 5,000 shelves total. That's a lot of stripped logs, guys. I'll check back in once I have everything gathered, but now you guys can see why I really built this mangrove farm. I finally managed to strip 2 shulker boxes of mangrove logs. I'm going to go ahead, turn all of these into the shelves, and we'll have the hardest block of this entire section done. I spent an entire day working on this, but we officially have all of the mangrove blocks completely gathered, and we're good to move on to the rest of this. And from here on out, this part should be really straightforward. We do actually have to go over to the industrial storage room real quick and grab a shulker box of iron blocks, but that shouldn't be an issue because we AFK'd the iron farm so much while doing bone meal. Let's see. Yeah, perfect. We got plenty of iron blocks. Grab this one and we'll be on our way. And just like that, we have all the blocks gathered for this project. Now, this part definitely took a lot longer to gather for and definitely has a lot more blocks than the first part did. But without further ado, let's get to work. Let's place all these in. So this is the second structure inspired by Andor, and it is actually massive sci-fi grain silos. Now, throughout the process for this one, I really wanted to push myself with texturing. So for every single part of it, I tried to weather in a way that made sense. On the red supports, I tried to weather it into these rust colors, including browns and oranges. And even in the white texture on the sides, I tried to weather down grays from all of the bands to make it look weathered. Next, as you can probably tell, the structure for this one is 12 little silos around one massive one in the center. And if you've ever wondered what it would look like if you placed 22,000 blocks for a single silo, well, this is what it would look like. I'm so sure you guys have wondered that. One thing I'm personally trying to work on with my building is to stop being so repetitive. Often I will texture half of a project, and then I will flip it onto the other half to texture the entire project quickly. For this project, I came up with a better solution though. I fully textured an individual one of the little silos all the way around completely unique. And then I rotated that one 90 degrees randomly for each of the slots that it sits on each side. So when you look at it, no two are the same, but they're all actually still the same one. And then to finish off the silo project, we added these little catwalks that extend off every single side to make it look like it's a bit more accessible by people. And we have finished the silos. Now this is probably the main attraction of this area. It's meant to be just giant sci-fi grain silos with a little control hut nearby. Now as far as this build goes, this is something I'm actually really proud of how it turned out. I really tried to push the texturing and weather down from all of the little braces. And then I also added these like little yellow stripes just to add like a little bit more color and a bit of extra detail, and I think that was a really good addition. Now the original plan for this project was to create a giant automatic wheat farm inside of these silos, and I was going to build giant wheat or smaller wheat farms in every single one of these little silos, and then a giant one in the big one right here. But while I was designing this project, I started planning out what my next one was going to be, and it's kind of made this like obsolete, and it's not really a reason to actually build out the wheat farm and spend the time moving villagers and everything. But the original plan was all of the wheat would actually fall out of here, get transported to this little hut, and end up in a sorter in here. And I thought that would have been a really sick design, as you could walk over and just see wheat falling out of the silo. And I might still revisit this idea in the future just because it would be really cool, but it just really doesn't make sense. When you guys see my next project, it'll make a lot more sense why I'm deciding not to do this. So ultimately, apart from the fact that we moved the villagers over, I think this build will be mostly just decoration, unfortunately. But hey, not every build can have a purpose. I mean, after you play on a world for 4 years, you start running out of reasons to build new things. Now that the silo's done, it is time to start the first piece of farming equipment on the giant wheat field, which is a massive sci-fi combine that I have built. Now this one also has quite an extensive block palette, so I'm gonna go ahead and start gathering up all these blocks, and I'll see you guys here in a second once it's all done. And just like that, we're off to the races with the first piece of farming equipment on our giant sci-fi farm. The first step here was just to fill in the ground and add the treads, which are honestly my favorite detail with this entire build. Moving on here though, we start to build up the walls, as well as build the combine attachment and the arms that hold it up and connect it to the machine. I tried to make almost hydraulic looking attachment points to all of these connections to help it look like it was an actual piece of heavy machinery. Moving over to the backside, we added a couple huge engines as well as some staircases running up the side of it, almost like some workman ladders. Throw in way too many levers, a bunch of random copper pipes, and you have a really good sci-fi build. And then this roof was really challenging. I tried to do this curved dome-shaped roof that wasn't a true dome. It was really challenging, but I'm quite happy with how it turned out. And then lastly, as it's a combine, it needed some way of processing the wheat, and my thought process for this is on the back there, that's a conveyor belt, and it just leaves behind bales of fully harvested wheat. And we have the very first piece of farming equipment all built and done. This vehicle is my take at a sci-fi combine, and while it's not perfect, I think I got the picture across, and this was one of the most challenging builds I've ever done. During the design process for this build, I spent over 4 days working on just this combine, and it was just such a struggle for me to get to. One of the main challenges I faced with this one was working with the colors. I ended up settling for this red and white color palette, and that was fine. I originally wanted it to be blue, but honestly, there's just not that many good blue blocks in the game, and I kind of got stuck in the cyan and the warped planks kind of look, and it just wasn't really working out the way I intended, so I ended up swapping it to a red color palette, and I think that turned out a lot better than the blue was. A few parts of this I'm really happy with. I absolutely love these treads. I think like the little bit of gray on the corners, the divots, the rails, I think the treads came together really nicely. I'm also really happy with the front of the combine here, where it's harvesting the wheat, as well as I'm pretty happy with these like piston arms I tried to make. I think it kind of managed to look like hydraulics, and I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. Oh, and I'm also really happy with the treads. I think this looks so good, where like it leaves the tread marks in the ground, a little bit of indentation, feels broken up. And then I also tried to create this like farmed land texture where the wheat's missing and it's like been harvested, right? My thought process for this combine is as it goes, it bales wheat and it just leaves them piled up on the back, and it just will like create these lines of wheat bales, and then different vehicles will come and pick them up. And we actually will be building one of these little, almost like sci-fi trucks right here that has a couple bales on the back of it, and that will take them over to a staging point that's over in the corner over there. But for now, this area of the build is done. We have the very first combine in. I'm so happy with how that turned out. And I think we're going to start working on the mech that sits right here next. And then this one's just more of a general mech. Honestly, I haven't really given it a purpose. It was just a really cool build that me and Cybark made together. And I really wanted to include it on this project. But without further ado, I'm going to get to block gathering for this one, and then we'll go ahead and build it. Oh, one last quick shot. I absolutely love how it looks at night with the headlights on it, just illuminating the front of it. Now for block gathering for the next mech, I'm mostly just going to skip through this. There's nothing really too crazy in here. It's just a lot of junk blocks, as you've seen with me building before. This one actually has by far the most different unique blocks in this project. And that is just because this was the only one that was a collab project between me and Cybark, because we were building this for a different purpose at the start and like just a for fun thing. So I'm going to skip through the block gathering for this and I'll just start building. Otherwise, this video is going to be 40 minutes. And with a little bit of magic and a few hours of my time, we have all of the blocks gathered to build the second mech. And I'm going to go ahead and build this thing real quick. So yeah, as I said, this was actually a collab project between me and Cybark. It's a huge shout out to him. It's always a pleasure to build with him. Whenever we build a project together, the build is always substantially better than whenever one of us does it alone. There's something about building with someone else and having them check your work and be like, nah, that shouldn't be quite how it is, and it should be a little bit more like this. That always elevates a build to the next level. And we have another mech on the world. This one is actually 2 vehicles in one. We added this little hot air flying balloon, as well as the big mech right here. Now, unlike the Combine, I don't have as much just to talk about and yap about here, but I do want to highlight just a couple of my favorite details with this build. And so when I was designing this build, I got stuck in a couple points with the coloring. I thought the tan and the brown were way too similar and they were struggling to kind of separate. So I went in and added just these patches of white, almost like the mech's been patched in spots only on the tan sections. And I really like how that kind of just adds a pop of extra color and helps break up just the giant sheet of brown and tan that there was. A couple other things I really like. I also really like the treads again on this one. I tried to create those like kind of tread covers on it, as well as do some gears and internal workings to the treads. And then we went ahead, designed another satellite, more antenna and everything on the top, along with the giant smokestack, and I think this one turned out really good. I also absolutely love this color palette where we used the birch and the sandstone and the mangrove and the acacia to blend between them all. Originally, this mech was designed for an SMP starter base on a server I'm playing on, and I'll actually be listing that SMP survival base on my Patreon if you're interested. We basically gave this mech an entire interior with a storage room and everything, and I really liked how it turned out, so I thought I'd include that. But apart from that, I'm going to be moving on. Next stop is we're going to be working on the staging area that sits right here. So I'm going to go ahead, get all the blocks gathered, and I'll see you guys here in a second. And after a little bit of work, we have every block gathered to build the staging area, so I'm going to go ahead and build the staging area. I do want to quickly mention how insane our copper aging area has gotten during this process. I keep running out of random blocks, so I just decided to place way too many of each one, and then I just slowly chip away whenever I need new blocks. The staging area was the first time I needed an oxidized door, so I ended up placing in 2 stacks of doors even though I only needed 1. So coming back to the staging area, when I say staging area, what I really meant is just a place that they store the hay bales. Now, honestly, this area should be a lot bigger. I just kind of wanted at least a little something. Maybe it's like a drop-off point that then it gets packed up and taken even farther. Right here, I went ahead, added another control tower, as well as a bunch of piles of wheat and a truck carrying it in. While I was working on this video, I did realize that a crane would look really good in this area, so I think I might go back and add a crane here as well. Just a little something to help unload the hay bales. And the little staging area is now done. This is a very minor section of the build. I've done a couple other little sections like this that we'll be putting in here in a second. But I added 1 satellite tower with like a little control panel on it. I'm really happy with these like auto crafters, and the way they look is like buttons. And then we've added a bunch of bales of wheat, some more just junk piled up. I don't know, maybe it's used for something. And then this is our sci-fi truck that we designed. It is almost like a flatbed designed to just carry the hay bales between the areas. Got a little control area, and then just a few bales piled up on the back of it. But I tried my best to add a couple little areas like this just to help break up the giant wheat field, but not too much as to make it feel like it's not a giant wheat field. It was really a fine line that I had to balance through this process, but I'm really happy with these areas. So I'm gonna go and build the next little satellite that will sit on this little patch right here, and then we will continue on. I also want to just quickly say I'm extremely active in Discord, so if you guys are ever interested in getting build feedback or just connecting with a bunch of other really talented builders, there'll be a Discord link down in the description. It's always really fun getting to know you guys, so if you ever have any questions, make sure to reach out. Just don't ask me about redstone. And then, like I said, we decided to add one more little sci-fi truck over here by the Combine, almost as if they're about to start loading it up with the hay bales it's creating. Now that another single tower and truck have been built, it's time for me to start block gathering again. But for these next two vehicles, I'm not going to do them one at a time. I'm just going to go ahead and do both of them at the same time. I got one flying vehicle that sits here, and another flying vehicle that will be in the sky right about here, and it'll just be a nice way to help break up the skyline. Funny enough, even though it's so small, this little signal tower is probably my favorite build that I did in this entire project. I absolutely love how the little details on this thing turned out. I love the grindstones to make it look like it can rotate on the pole. I reused these same control panels all over, but I think the texturing on this thing turned out really well, and I'm very happy with it. Starting off with the first small ship, this one I've nicknamed the Hover. And that's because it just floats a couple blocks off the ground. I created this mushroom-shaped base to it that just makes it look like it floats off the ground, and it's got some sort of hover tech. And then honestly, for the second one, I'd been taking screenshots of the build while I was designing it, and I was just like, the sky's just so empty. There's too much blank space there. So I went ahead and designed like almost like a passenger ship or a single starfighter that's racing across the sky. To help make it look like it's in motion, I added these streaks behind it out of stained glass. And we have another couple of vehicles on the world. Now, I'm kind of going to brush over these and move along pretty quickly, but I am quite happy with this one's design. It was very weird, and it actually took me over 2 days to design. I kept scrapping different designs as I was working on it, and it was just a really challenging build, but I think it turned out pretty interesting. However, I really don't know what his purpose is, so make sure to drop a comment below if you have any idea what he should be doing on the farm. I kind of thought that maybe these could be like little sprayers and he's like spraying the crops as he flies along, but I'm not sure. So let me know down below. And then this is the other ship that I designed, and to me it kind of looks like Anakin Skywalker's ship, but I know it's not quite there. For every vehicle on this build, I tried to use different color palettes just to make it more interesting, and yellow was definitely another challenging one, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I like the engines, and I really like the trail it leaves in the sky, and this actually looks so good at helping break up the skyline. But with 2 more vehicles done, we're actually only 1 major step away from finishing this project. So let's go ahead and build the final house that sits on the wheat field. So after a few hours of block gathering, we were ready to build the final house. Once again, this is another house inspired by Andor. This is the 3rd and final structure. One fun thing I like to do is occasionally I'll let my mods design an interior for 1 or 2 of my structures on each build. And for this one, I handed it out to Beat again. She did the tavern in the Redwood Village and a couple of the classrooms in the Wizard Tower. Huge shout out to her. I really appreciate the help. So this house has an entire fully fledged interior. And we are officially done with the last structure on the wheat field. Man, does it feel good. So this is Beat's beautiful bar. Shout out to Beat again for designing this interior. I really appreciate it. And I love how your interiors add a bit more life to my world. But I think this turned out absolutely awesome. And if we fly away, we are finally able to start to get an idea of how this project actually looks as it's all come together. Don't mind this ugly line. We'll fix that one day. We do have 1 or 2 little things left. I'm going to quickly go and touch up the rest of the cliff, and then we will build the last detail. Touching up the cliff ended up only taking us about 10 minutes. We just went in, added a layer of dirt, blended the little bit of corner that touches the redwoods. A lot of this will be touched up once again the day we decide to come back and do the path. And then for the very last detail, this was, I believe, an original idea, but also due to the simplicity of it, it might not have been. We decided to add a bunch of black candles in the sky to mimic flocks of birds flying in V formations. And I mean, what field doesn't have birds? But to me, this is one of the highlights of this project. And with the birds getting added, this project is officially done. This build ended up taking about a month and 2 weeks of my time that I worked on it almost every single day for multiple hours. I'm super happy with how everything turned out. It is very different than anything I have ever done before. So let me know down below if you guys are interested in me doing wildly different builds like this every video. I think it helps keep it interesting, and it really helps me elevate my skills as a builder as I push myself with each build to do something new. From the spot that I'm standing here, you can see 4 years of builds on this world, ranging all the way back to when the pyramid was done, the original mountains were done, the lightning clouds, the jungle, the redwoods, and more recently even the Wizard Tower. Absolutely surreal being able to see this much custom building all in one screen. When I'm working on my projects, I like to tally up my shulker boxes as I empty them and just throw them into double chests so I can keep track of how many blocks I placed. Going off of just the shulker boxes in these chests, this build was about 275,000 blocks. Now, I did gather a lot more of blocks, and there are some there I used almost the entire shulker, and if we counted all those up, it probably adds another 10-15,000. But this ended up taking so long just because of how heavily detailed these projects were. Each section I really tried to push myself, and I really hope that came across in the video. My goal for this year is to become a better builder. I mean, that's been my goal for the last 4 years, but you know, you gotta keep improving. One build at a time. Now, I did promise you guys that I would make a redstone wheat farm in here, and I'm a man of my word. And because of that, we're just gonna quickly mock up a very simple redstone wheat farm, and you guys will be happy. And by hoeing that with the water behind it, we can place a wheat seed there. Those 2 blocks in the front. Come around the side here. We go comparator on into redstone, dust covering all of that. Then we throw the lever on the front, and I believe this will run. And then if I turn this on, there we go. The world's most overkill wheat farm. You guys know what time it is. It is time for us to update the world map now that we have filled in this entire area right here, and we get to see what this new build looks like on the map. Look at all of that color coming in. That is insane. Look at that as all of this area updates. It is so crazy to watch. But with the new wheat field in, that is what it looks like on our world map. I did not realize when I first planned this out that the wheat color was so yellow on the map. But hey, what can you do? It's another new biome added. And while this project is done, there's a few more things I want to do over the next few days. The old forgotten forest right here, I don't like this massive green patch, so I'm going to start stretching these trees this way and some of the wheat upwards, help blend those 2 areas in a little better. Probably carry the savanna area around to kind of here, help break that up as well. So if you guys are interested in watching me fill out some of these little details, make sure to come stop by the stream. I'll be streaming all of this live over on Twitch this weekend, so make sure to come check it out. As usual, I post all of my builds over on Patreon, so make sure to check that out if you're interested in getting any of these downloads. I have actually also created a brand new Patreon tier where you can get every single one of my builds that I have ever made. So make sure to check that out if you're interested in getting everything I've ever done. Apart from that, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been an insane project, and I can't wait for you guys to see what I'm cooking up for the next one. It's gonna be awesome.